Gas fitter exam cram session, video 23. Okay, question 42. Threaded fittings used in a system with an operating pressure of over half a psi up to 5 psi shall be no larger than, well, we know half is 4, so 5 is the next step after half. So from over half a psi to 5 psi, since we can't use a 4-inch threaded fitting, the next largest fitting, or the largest fitting beneath that would be the 3.5, since that is the commercially available fitting. And if that wasn't in the answer choices, let's say, no 3.5, we had 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you would pick 3, of course. Question 43. All outdoor piping shall be elevated not less than 3.5 inches above ground or roof surface. Okay? So all outdoor piping, keyword is outdoor, and then, well, where are we going to find it? Well, you can run outdoor piping close to the ground, you can run outdoor piping on the roof, to the unit. It's got to be no less than 3.5 inches, of course, to the bottom of the pipe. All right, notice that, let's look at the other 3 choices just to get a feel for how to pay attention to words. Make sure these words don't bite us. Make sure that we don't fall a victim to semantics. Okay? All outdoor piping shall be elevated not higher than 3.5 inches above ground or roof surface. If that was the best choice, that would be a true choice. It's not the best choice, but it would be somewhat true in that, well, okay, we can raise it higher than. But if we were at 3.5, we would be at a code approved height. But it's still weird, right? But it can throw you off if you're not paying attention. Let's try choice C. All outdoor piping shall be elevated at 3.5 inches above ground or roof surface. Not completely wrong. It's like at 3.5. Sure, if you were left with the instructions that your boss wants it all at 3.5, the job would pass. But it can be higher. It just can't be lower. Okay? And all outdoor piping shall be elevated below 3.5 inches above ground or roof surface. That's definitely completely wrong. We know that we got to have at least 3.5 inches, but it can be higher. It's merely the minimum limit. So D is completely wrong. B and C have some truth to them. They're not 100% wrong. And they could throw you off if you're not paying attention, because I'm giving you wording that's not the exact wording in the code. So if you're looking for a strict copy of the sentence in the code, which you're going to get more often than not because it's easiest for the test maker to make, but they can change up the wording a little bit. Those 2 could throw you off and you steer you away from the only really true correct answer, or the most correct or best answer. A, not less than. And that statement, encompasses that, well, then that means we can go higher if we had to. Question 44. Purging is not required on 6-inch piping when less than. And did we have our table again? So we wrote it out. 10 feet, right? Okay. 45. Max length for a commercial cooking appliance flexible connector. Wow, we've been beating this question to death. 6 feet. 46. The maximum length of the passageway to a gas-fired water heater installed in an attic shall be... This is a trick question. Only an electric water heater may be installed in an attic. This is new. This is important. I'm probably only going to go over it once though, because I don't think it's extremely important. I didn't see any questions about this on my exam, but there's always a possibility you could get questions on this. It's contained within a small paragraph that pops up here and there, especially when you're talking about appliances. In the plumbing code, it pops up in the water heater chapter. The water heater chapter is like maybe two, 3 pages at most. It pops up in the mechanical code for oil-fired units. The mechanical code deals with oil. If you ever, if you have ever taken the oiler exam, if you plan to, or if you know someone, what they would have to study would definitely be every single line of the fuel oil chapter in the mechanical code, at the very least, okay? But in the mechanical code, they mention if you're going to install a water heater in a crawl space or a subspace, not necessarily a basement or cellar, because a basement or cellar that you can walk down a flight of stairs and have a doorway and, go in and room, that's easy. You have plenty of access to the water heater. Now we're talking about, let's say, a sub-level where now you're going to put an oil-fired appliance that really, it's just a bare minimum access to this appliance. There's a paragraph that states what the smallest possible access is going to be, what it looks like, how long, how wide, etc., etc. In the fuel gas code, the same goes for an appliance that will be in an attic. That we're not talking about an attic that there's stairs to it, a door, you go in there, you could possibly convert it to a studio, etc. We're talking about attics that say it's strictly a space between the roof and the ceiling that is just insulated to keep heating and cooling costs down. And the only access is really one of those little pull-down stairs or just a very small door just to get in there for access to the unit, and that's about it. You can't even store your Christmas ornaments there, okay? In all these, in the case for these, the crawl space or just sub-level, sub-floor in the mechanical code, you could have an oil-fired burning appliance. In the fuel gas code, you could have a fuel gas burning appliance, but in the attic, for both codes, you can only have an electric appliance. So in this question, we are talking about a water heater. The minute it said gas-fired water heater, absolutely not. I could think of 2 big things. One thing is, well, a gas-fired water heater in the attic, it's a flame. You're asking for it, okay? It's just gotta make, it's gotta not feel right with you, okay? And secondly, a water heater has a lot of water in it. A water heater is going to have a drain pan and then possibly an auxiliary drain pan. If this is in the attic, I can't see any single room above which you'd want that water heater there. Once you think about if it goes and everything fails, it's a downpour. So for the electric water heater, well, with the downpour and everything, you better make sure you do have your drain pan, your auxiliary drain pan, and the little alarms and everything. It's always in working order. But more importantly, the electric water heater, there's no flame. Okay, it's electric. Okay, so for this question, maximum length of the passageway for the gas-fired water heater. No, we're not going to put a gas-fired water heater or an oil one in the attic. We're only going to use an electric water heater. Since it is in the code, it's fair game, and if you ever see the paragraph, it's not included in the sections of the code I gave you. Like I said, this paragraph pops up here and there. And when you read it, it's a very small paragraph, but when you read it, there are so many numbers in it. You'll start getting woozy looking at it. So this next section, starting on page 31, is lighthearted, mainly because I just want you to see the numbers, get an idea of what it is they're looking for, walk away with something so that in case you see it on the exam, it's not the first time, and you have something in your long-term memory that will help you pick the right answer, or at least what are definitely the wrong answers. Should you memorize this to heart, like these tables and everything? Only if, after all, you're done memorizing all these tables to heart, you got nothing better to do. Sure, spend some time on this, but we'll do this once. I think once is enough, okay? So you don't need me to read this stuff here. You just need to know the dimensions. So if we turn to page 34, you're going to see a doorway. So this doorway is going to be the minimum dimensions of how you're going to get into the attic, okay? If the electric water heater is in the attic, you got to get into the attic. Where's the entrance to the attic? I don't know, but when you find it, it's got to be at least 20 inches long, 30 inches high. 20 inches long, 30 inches high. That's a measurement that's going to allow you to bring the old water heater out, bring a new water heater in. Okay? Now, you're going to have what are the chances the water heater is right there? Well, there's a chance, but usually you're going to have to, once you're in the attic, crawl around in there to get to the water heater. Okay? How much crawling should you be doing? Well, you shouldn't be low crawling like you're avoiding enemy fire. So, whatever passageway you're going to have, whatever distance you have from the access to the actual appliance, it's got to be at least 20, let's see, it's got to be at least 30 inches high, okay? 30 inches high. So that's wow, that is pretty tight. If you think about 30 inches high, that's 2.5 feet. So at the very least, you're gonna have to stay down, crouch down, and make your way through it. So it kind of is a crawl space. It's got to be at least 22 inches wide. So a little some kind of elbow room. Not even 2 feet, at least 22 inches. Okay. It can't be any longer than 20 feet. So you're not going to be crouched down like that for more than 20 feet. That's still a long way to go. That's not a comfortable trek to the appliance. Okay. And let's see. The walkway itself, because this is an attic. An attic is, you're going to, when they're framing it out, it starts off with joists, and it's not a finished attic, so the tendency is that it's just going to be joists there. But on the catwalk, the surface you're actually standing on, you're not going to try and balance yourself from joist to joist. There has to be a pathway, a catwalk there. It's got to be at least 2 feet wide. So, 20 feet long. Not looking forward to that. The catwalk itself, 2 feet wide. Okay. Headroom, 30 inches headroom. Okay. Elbow room, 22 inches elbow room. That sucks. Yeah, send a new guy up there, right? Okay. All right. Now, if we turn to page 36, we finally get to the water heater. Now, guess what? Remember when we had our unit on the roof? And if the edge was 30 inches, was more than 30 inches above grade, we had to have a level platform at the access panels for the unit so that we could be there, work there, have some tools there, etc. The water heater is no different. For the water heater itself, there must be a level working platform at least 30 inches by 30 inches. 30 inches by 30 inches. And since we're on the topic, what if we were on the roof? They mentioned a level working platform, and they also mentioned handrails. We don't need handrails in the attic, but we need them on the roof. What would the handrails be? How high would they be? 42 inches, right? Okay, so let's look at the numbers again. At the very bottom, so it's a 20 by 30 access open, okay? You'll remember that the 30 is how high it is because the rest of the access passageway, the pathway, is also 30. That's our headroom, 30. 30 inches headroom, 22 inches elbow room, no more than 20 feet of that torture, okay? 24-inch wide or 2-foot wide solid flooring, a catwalk, and a 30 by 30 platform once we get to the unit itself to do what we got to do. And it's not mentioned here, but there also should be a light at the unit. They call it a luminaire. Okay, it's an all-encompassing term for you got to have some kind of light there. Okay, a light bulb, whatever, ceiling light, any kind of light, some light there, and the switch to it has to go back. It has to be at the access opening. You have to be able to flick it on at the access opening, and then at the water heater, there it is. So when you're wiring this thing up, you know you got to buy at least more, something more than 20 feet of BX cable or Romex, whatever you're going to use. The wiring is going to be more than 20 feet. It's 20 feet just to get to the points, and then whatever extra you need to make it to wherever you got your switches, control box, your luminaire, etc. And that's it. Those are the numbers. I would never tell you nothing is important. Everything's important. Everything's fair game. Your enemy has absolutely no honor. So you can't cry foul when they put something on the exam because they'll ask anything they want. So I would never say nothing is important. If I'm going to tell you what to prioritize, because that is definitely something we need to do, not everything is as important as everything else. I would say this is of lower priority than all the tables. The tables, you see, every chance I get, I review them again. I repeat them again. The questions go over again. This information, you got it. It might even stick without you studying it, but if everything else is done and you want to cover your bases, sure, you go over this information. But that's as much as I want to say on that. Okay, so question 47. We're now on page 37, question 47. Minimum diameter for condensate drain piping shall be 3/4 of an inch inside diameter. So whatever piping material you're using, it's got to have a 3/4 inch internal diameter at least. So depending on the material, some materials maybe you just can't get that perfectly. You might have to go up with the next size so that it's a little more than 3/4, but you fulfill the code, because if you went with their 3/4 nominal size, the size you ask for, the size you get, that material is just not going to give you the full diameter. But it's 3/4 internal diameter. Where fuel gas is concerned, the Department of Transportation, DOT, has jurisdiction over. And I'm going to go through all of them because, spoiler alert, the answer is D, all of the above. So what is all of the above? Pipelines in the street, they have jurisdiction over that. Service to individual buildings, they have jurisdiction over that. Service regulators and meters, they have jurisdiction over that. So, what does that mean? Well, I would say in the street, because it is a Department of Transportation, they are allowed to make decisions and put their hands on piping in the street, because if the street gets torn up, if something happens in the street, they're right there. Or permits that they've issued to individuals opening up the street. They are right there. They do something. If they can fix it, if they can somehow alleviate the situation temporarily, they should do it. They got to do it. So, the Department of Transportation has jurisdiction over lines in the street. We're talking about the mains, and then lines coming from the mains to the buildings, you know. But that's still outside, but they can shut stuff if they have to, you know, for the sake of safety, for the sake of getting work done. And they also have, and this is interesting, jurisdiction over service regulators and meters. So it may be outside, but more often than not, it's inside in the cellar. They have the right to come in and do what they got to do in the meter room to take care of an issue. So to remember that, we can imagine, well, the utility is also very territorial, very protective, in that that is their jurisdiction. We don't get to touch. We as the plumbers, as the gas fitters, we don't touch it. We don't deal with that. That's their thing. So I guess I like to memorize this as that, you know, at any given time in an emergency, you might go down into the meter room and find somebody from Con Ed and somebody from the DOT having a fist fight, right? Question 49. Since utilities have say in the matter, what are some of the things they say? You can get a general idea of some of the things they say in their their books. Each one has a book. Con Edison has what's known as the Yellow Book. Con Edison specifications can be found in the Yellow Book. Con Edison is yellow. National Grid specifications can be found in the Blue Book. National Grid's book is blue. If you're curious about the two books, once again, Fitter Exam Fight Club on the website, go to the PDF page. You scroll down, you'll see I have two PDFs. These are directly from the utilities. You can download from there. You could always go to the utility also, their websites, because that's where I got it. But, you know, you go to Fit Exam Fight Club. There's the yellow and the blue book. You can look through it and see. Most of it is just for the customer. And by customer, the language and the numbers and the information seems to be tailored to, say, if I was managing a residential apartment building, you know, if I was looking to, you know, schedule some kind of change or inspection or whatever, you know. But there's a few good things in there. It's worth taking a look at, just so you know. But the most important thing is, if you needed some information, Con Ed's book is yellow, National Grid's book is blue. And that's questions 49 and 50. So that completes test 3. Page 38, the answers for test 3, of course. So, test 4. The last test in this book. This has some of the most recent questions and some of the most difficult. So, we're going to keep reviewing this stuff here, but it'll go faster because each time we do it, we keep practicing our memory shorthand. So now we're just going to keep rattling off numbers, get them to like it's instinctive, automatic, a cadence, like a song. Because there's going to be some stuff that now you're going to be exposed for the first time, and we got to go through the same process all over again. It's like the shock of seeing it for the first time. And then realizing we can't absorb everything at once, so what's the most important thing? And then the next time we see the question, what's the second most important thing? And then the third time, how can we make this more efficient? And then the fourth, and the fifth, you know, and the sixth, and the seventh, and the eighth, until you look at it one day and say, gee, why did I even give this any sweat? You know, this is simple. It makes total sense. All right, test, page 39, test 4, question 1. Except when in the same room as the appliance served, Gas piping must be identified by yellow label marked gas in black letters and the marking spaced at intervals not exceeding 5 feet. So, that's why, wherever I could, I tried to reinforce that, yeah, this is what you're looking at. This is what should be on the piping. Okay? This is what it should look like. It's yellow, black letters. Okay? Let's take a chance to review the sign to the meter room. That, there's no specific coloration. But there was one thing. They wanted the letters at least a certain height. What was that height? Do you remember? 1 inch. Okay. Now, not exceeding 5 feet. If we go to the you probably knew the answer to this question because one of the first things I pointed out when we opened up the book was page 2. And on page 2, I showed you. It's got to be black letters, yellow tape, and this pertains to the plumbing code, except when we're in the fuel gas code. Everything is going to stay the same, but 5 feet for gas, right there. Big, 5 feet for gas. It's a different number for anything else, but unless we're taking a strict plumbing exam, we're not going to really worry about that number. But you can see there's a difference, okay? For gas, it's much shorter, okay? 5 feet for gas, all right? And as you see in question 1, I did give you, one of the choices was a correct choice if it were for any other piping except gas. But we're talking about gas, 5 feet. Question 2. Where there are multiple gas meters, the installer must mark the piping system supplied by each meter with an approved permanent identification. Okay, so we'll take an apartment building for example. Main gas line coming in, and then this line is going to be for cooking gas, and the distribution piping shall be that from the basement itself, from the meter room itself, each unit gets their own line so that each unit has to have their own meter so that each meter can be read and each unit billed individually. Okay? When that happens, the installer, whoever is putting that in, it is quite possible, there is such a thing that the Department of Building will allow the master plumber to self-inspect. In other words, they'll take the master plumber's word for it. Of course, there's documentation, so he is liable. It's a record of him assuming liability in this inspection, but they'll let him self-inspect. It's quite possible that you may be allowed, the utility may allow you, or may allow the third party or a different contractor to come in and mount all the meter sets, connect all the meters to each of the lines, to each of the units. Just like you really hate to go to your fuse box or your circuit breaker box and then open the box and not see anything that tells you which fuse or breaker goes to which line, which part of the house, and you gotta keep flicking around until you finally figure out which one does what, and you keep wondering, look, whoever put these in, was it that big a deal to write something saying this switch is for the bedroom, this switch is for the porch lights, blah, blah, blah? Same thing with the meters. You're going to, if you're the installer, pretend we're the installer, you have to indicate this meter, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 2A, 2A, 3A, 1A, 2A, so 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, etc. But it's got to be labeled out so you know which meter gets assigned to which unit, who gets what bill, right? The installer will do that, whoever that is. Question 3. The volume of gas to be provided must be determined directly from the input rating of the appliance served. We touched upon this in that